The great galactic council chamber was a noisy and strange place. Sounds of clicking, humming, and deep rumbling voices filled the air. Smells of spice, metal, and things for which humans had no name mixed together. In the middle of all this was a man. His name was Jin. He was the human delegate for Earth. He sat in his small plain chair and watched. He had been doing this for a long time. For 50 years since Earth first joined the Council, the humans had played a game. It was a game of pretending to be less than they were. When other species showed off new and powerful engines, Jin would smile and say, "A wonderful thing. Our own engines are still very slow." When they displayed shields of glowing light, he would nod and say, "Amazing. We are still using simple metal armor." To the whole galaxy, humanity was peaceful, a little backward, and completely harmless. They were no threat to anyone. But this was a lie. Deep under the city of Seoul, in a room full of bright screens and quiet computers, a woman named Sue watched Jin on a large monitor. She was the leader of a secret team. Her job was to watch the council and advise Jin. She was the brain and he was the face of the same quiet plan. A young man named Day sat at another screen. He was a brilliant engineer. He found it very hard to sit still and watch. "They are laughing at us, Sue," he said, his voice tight. "The Vosk reptiles are talking again about taking minerals from our asteroid belt. They think we are not using it." Sue did not look away from her screen. Her face was calm. "I know, Day, but we must be patient." In the council chamber, Jin heard Sue's voice through a small device in his ear. Her words were clear only to him. "The Vosk proposal is moving forward, Jin. They are gathering support." Jin thought a silent reply which the device picked up. "I see it. We must not react. Not yet. This was the human plan. For 100 years, the people of Earth had known they were not alone in the universe. They also saw that the galaxy was a dangerous place. Strong species often pushed around weak ones. So the leaders of Earth made a decision. They would pretend to be weak. They would act quiet and humble. Meanwhile, every nation on Earth worked together in secret. They poured money and brain power into science and weapons the galaxy knew nothing about. While Jin told the council that human ships were slow, engineers like Dai were building engines that could bend space. While he said their weapons were simple, the armies of Earth were training with powered armor and giant mechanical soldiers. They were hiding their true strength, waiting for the right moment. Back in the underground room, Dai shook his head. "How long is patience, Sue? Until they land in Gyeongbokgung Palace? We have the fleet. We have the soldiers. We should show them now." Sue finally turned to look at him. Her eyes were serious. "Dai's strength is not just about having a big gun. It is about knowing the exact right time to fire it. If we show our power too soon, they will not see us as equals. They will see us as a problem to be destroyed. We must wait until they make a mistake." The mistake came a few days later. It was not a declaration of war. It was something much worse. A large Vosk named Gorvath stood up in the council. He was big with green scales and sharp teeth. His voice, translated by a machine, was deep and full of pride. He started to talk about Earth. He called it a beautiful garden world. He said it was full of important history. Then his tone changed. "It is a sad truth," Gorvath said, "that the human species is not able to take care of such a wonderful planet. They are too emotional. Their lives are too short to learn properly. Their bodies are weak. They are like children who have been given a precious jewel. They do not understand its value." Jin felt his hands curl into fists under the table. He forced them to relax. He kept his face calm. Gorvath continued. "So the Vosk Empire, with the support of this council, proposes the Terra Reclamation Mandate. For their own safety and well-being, the human population will be moved to a new modern home on Mars. It will be a comfortable place. The planet Earth will be protected as a galactic nature park and a mining station for the council. It is a generous offer." Jin felt a cold anger spread through his body. This was not an attack. It was an eviction. They were not just trying to take their land. They were trying to take their home, their history, the place where humanity was born, and they were doing it with a smile, saying it was for their own good. In the underground command center, the room was completely silent. Everyone was staring at the screen, their faces pale with shock. Day looked like he wanted to punch his monitor. Sue's calm mask was gone, replaced by a hard, cold expression. This was the line. This was the disrespect they had been waiting for and fearing. In the council chamber, all eyes turned to Jin. They expected him to cry. They expected him to beg. They expected him to thank them for their so-called generosity. Gorvath looked down at Jin. "Delegate Jin," he said, his voice dripping with false kindness. "You may now thank the council for its wisdom." Jin stood up. The chamber was quiet. He looked small next to the giant Vosk, but when he spoke, his voice did not shake. It was quiet, but it was clear and sharp like ice. "The people of Earth," Jin said, "respectfully decline." For a moment there was only silence. Then the chamber erupted in sound. It was not the sound of anger. It was the sound of laughter. Gorvath let out a low rumbling chuckle. "Decline?" Gorvath said, the laughter fading from his voice. "You have no power to decline. You have no fleet. Your weapons are a joke from ancient history. What will you do, little human? Throw rocks at our battle cruisers?" Jin did not smile. He did not frown. He simply stood there. Inside his ear he heard Sue's voice. It was calm and clear. She had given the order he had been waiting for his whole life. "Jin," Sue said, "Operation Gumgangsan is active." Jin looked directly into Gorvath's large reptilian eyes. "No," Jin said, his voice still quiet but now carrying a new weight. "We will not throw rocks." The laughter in the Galactic Council chamber died down into a low murmur of confusion and annoyance. The delegates were not used to being told no, especially by a species they considered so harmless. Gorvath, the Vosk delegate, took a step closer to Jin. His large, scaly body towered over the human. "Explain yourself," Gorvath's translated voice boomed, all traces of false kindness gone. "You cannot decline a council mandate." "It is law." Jin remained standing. He kept his hands relaxed at his sides. He knew that every eye in the chamber was on him. He also knew that cameras were broadcasting this moment across the galaxy. Every species would be watching the quiet human. "We can," Jin said, his voice still calm. "And we have. The mandate is based on a lie. You think we are weak? You are wrong." This caused another wave of noise through the chamber. Gorvath let out a sharp, angry hiss. "Your delusions are not our concern. The mandate will proceed. Our ships will enter your solar system in one standard cycle. If you resist, you will be moved by force. Your posturing changes nothing. In one standard cycle," Jin repeated slowly. "Then you will see. You will see what a century of quiet work can do." Deep under Sol, the command center was a place of intense, focused activity. The shock had been replaced by a steady hum of purpose. Sue stood at the central command platform, her eyes moving across a dozen different screens. Each screen showed a different part of the solar system. "Status of the Teguk fleet?" Sue asked, her voice even. A controller to her right answered without looking up. "All ships are reporting ready. The first wing is moving from behind Luna. The second wing is exiting the asteroid belt. The third wing is on station near Mars." On another screen, Day's face appeared. He was in his engineering bay, surrounded by holographic schematics of ships and weapons. "The Guangzhou Forge is operating at maximum capacity. Drone swarms are being deployed. All defensive grids are active and waiting for your command, Sue." Sue gave a single sharp nod. "Hold all weapons. Defensive posture only. Let them make the first move. Let the whole galaxy see who the aggressor is." Back in the council chamber, Jin received the update through his implant. He sat down again. He did not look at Gorvath. He simply waited. The Vosk delegate was still standing, trying to get the council's attention. "This is a waste of time," Gorvath announced to the room. "The human is bluffing. He has nothing. When our fleet arrives, this foolishness will end." The next 20 hours passed slowly. Across Earth, life seemed normal on the surface. People went to work, children went to school. But underneath every city, in deep bunkers and command centers, humanity was holding its breath. They had prepared for this for generations. Now the moment was here. On the bridge of the human flagship, the Mujang, Captain Hana watched the main display. It showed the empty space near the edge of the solar system. She was a calm and serious woman who had trained for this day her entire life. "Vosk fleet has just entered the system," her sensor officer reported. 5 battlecruisers, 12 destroyers, multiple support vessels. They are moving on a direct course for Earth. Hana nodded. "Open a channel to the Vosk flagship. Use the standard council frequency. Make sure everyone can hear." The channel opened. A Vosk face appeared on the screen. He looked bored. "This is Captain Hana of the Earth defense vessel Mujang. You are entering restricted space. Turn your fleet around and leave this system immediately. The Vosk captain snorted. Restricted space? You have no authority here, human. Stand down or we will fire upon your— What is that, a cargo ship? He laughed, and Hana could hear other Vosk laughing in the background. Hana did not smile. This is your only warning, she cut the channel. On her display, she saw the Vosk fleet power up their primary weapons. Bright glows of plasma gathered at the fronts of their ships. They are targeting the Mujang, the weapons officer said. Execute Plan 1, Hana said. Throughout the solar system, space seemed to ripple and tear. From the dark side of the moon, from within the rocks of the asteroid belt, from the orbit of Mars, human ships flickered into view. They were not the blocky, utilitarian designs of the Vosk. The Taeguk fleet was sleek and angular, their hulls a dark, non-reflective material that seemed to drink the light from the stars. They moved with a quiet, terrifying speed. On the Vosk flagship, the board captain suddenly sat up straight. What is that? Where did those ships come from? Scan them. His sensor officer looked confused. The scans are unclear, Captain. Their energy signatures are minimal. They do not match any known technology. In the council chamber, a large holographic display was showing the live feed from the Vosk fleet. The laughter had stopped completely. The delegates watched in stunned silence as dozens, then hundreds of human ships appeared around the Vosk formation. They moved with a coordination that was frightening. Gorvath stared at the display, his mouth slightly open. This is a trick. They are projecting illusions. Jin said nothing. He just watched. The Vosk captain, now angry and embarrassed, gave the order. Fire, destroy them all. Bright lances of plasma shot from the Vosk battlecruisers. They streaked across space towards the human ships. The human ships did not try to fire back. They simply moved. They slid between the plasma bolts with impossible agility. It was like watching birds avoid rain. Then the human ships returned fire, but they did not fire plasma or lasers. There were no bright colors or beams of light. Instead, there was only a series of short, sharp flashes from the sides of the human vessels. A moment later, the lead Vosk battlecruiser shuddered violently. A massive hole, perfectly round, appeared in its side. Then another. And another. There was no explosion, just silent, brutal damage. The ship's lights flickered and died. It began to drift, powerless. The same thing happened to the other battlecruisers and destroyers. One by one, they were hit by invisible projectiles that punched straight through their shields and armor. Their engines went dark. Their weapons fell silent. In less than 3 minutes, the entire powerful Vosk fleet was disabled. It was a collection of floating dead metal. Not a single ship had been destroyed, but not a single one could fight back. The Galactic Council chamber was so quiet you could hear the hum of the life support systems. The delegates looked at the display, then at Jin, then back at the display. They could not understand what they had just seen. On the bridge of the Mujang, Captain Hana spoke again. Vosk fleet, your ships are disabled. Your crews are alive. We have sent rescue shuttles to provide life support. Do not attempt any further hostile action. Back on Earth in the command center, Day let out a loud cheer that was quickly hushed by the others. Sue allowed herself a small, tight smile. The first move was over. Humanity had shown its teeth without needing to kill. It was a message of restraint and overwhelming power. In the council chamber, Gorvath was staring at Jin with a look of pure hatred and confusion. What are you? He whispered. Jin finally turned to look at him. His face was still calm, but his eyes were like stone. We are humanity, Jin said, his voice carrying across the silent room. You were told we were quiet. You were never told we were weak. You made a mistake. You crossed a line. He stood up again, and this time every delegate watched him with a new kind of attention. It was not pity. It was not amusement. It was fear. The Terra Reclamation mandate is now void, Jin announced, not just to Gorvath, but to the entire council. Any ship that enters our solar system without permission will share the fate of the Vosk fleet. The time for your disrespect is over. He began to walk towards the exit of the chamber. He stopped at the large doorway and turned back one last time. The quiet is over, he said. Now you will listen. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber was heavy and deep. It was a silence of shock and fear. The delegates watched the human, Jin, as he walked towards the large doors. His steps were slow and steady. He did not look back at the frozen Vosk fleet on the display screen. He did not look at Gorvath, who was still standing as if made of stone. When the doors closed behind Jin, the silence broke. The chamber filled with a wave of noise. Dozens of different voices all spoke at once. They were asking questions. They were demanding answers. No one had any. Gorvath finally moved. He turned to the other delegates, his scales looking dull. "This is a trick," he roared, but his voice lacked its usual power. "They use some kind of sabotage. They are cheaters." But no one was listening to him anymore. The other species were looking at their own screens. They were studying the sensor data from the battle. The data showed something impossible. The human ships had no powerful energy sources. Their weapons were simple kinetic projectiles, metal rods fired at incredible speed. It was technology the Council considered ancient and useless, yet it had defeated their best ships in minutes. On Earth, the mood was different. There were no loud celebrations. Instead, there was a quiet, steady hum of work. In the command center under Seoul, Sue watched the reports coming in. The Voss crews were being rescued by automated human shuttles. They were given food, water, and medical care. They were prisoners, but they were treated with kindness. Day looked up from his screen. "Why are we helping them? They came here to throw us off our own planet." Sue did not look away from her main screen. "Because we are not them, Day. We are showing the galaxy the difference. They came with force and disrespect. We respond with force and rules. We are showing control." On the flagship Mujang, Captain Hana was doing the same. She oversaw the rescue operations. Her crew worked efficiently. They showed no anger towards the Vosk. They showed no joy in their victory. It was just a job that needed to be done. This calm professionalism was more frightening to the Vosk prisoners than any shouting would have been. Back in the council chamber, the main screen changed. It now showed a woman sitting at a simple desk. It was Sue. Her face was calm and serious. The broadcast was being sent to every planet in the Galactic Council. "People of the galaxy," Sue began. "My name is Sue. I am a leader of Earth. You have just seen a display of our military power. You may be afraid. You may be angry. You deserve to know why this happened." The screen behind her showed images from Earth's history. It showed old wars with airplanes and bombs. It showed cities in ruins. It showed the planet suffering from pollution and climate change. "For thousands of years," Sue continued, "we fought among ourselves. We nearly destroyed our own world. We learned a hard lesson. We learned that true strength is not in showing your power all the time. True strength is in knowing when to use it and how to use it wisely." The images changed. They showed the people of Earth coming together. They showed global meetings. They showed all nations agreeing to one plan, the quiet plan. They would hide their progress. They would let the galaxy think they were simple and peaceful. Meanwhile, they would build. They would invent. They would prepare. "We saw how the galaxy worked," Sue explained. "We saw strong species take from weak ones. We saw diplomacy used as a weapon. We did not want that. We did not want to be conquerors, but we did not want to be conquered either. So we decided to become the strongest, not to rule but to be left alone." The screen showed secret shipyards building the Taeguk fleet. It showed engineers like Day working on the powerful railguns. It showed soldiers training in advanced armor. It was a century of secret work, all leading to this moment. "We stayed quiet," Sue said. "We answered your questions with humility. We let you believe we were harmless. We hoped we would never need to show you the truth. But the Galactic Council, led by the Vosk, decided we were not worthy of our own home. You decided to treat us like children. You crossed a line. You forced our hand." In the council chamber, the delegates listened. They understood now. The humans had not been foolish. They had been patient. They had not been weak. They had been smarter than everyone else. Gorvath was now sitting in his chair. He looked defeated. His entire understanding of the universe had been broken in one day. The weak, quiet humans were the most dangerous species he had ever encountered. Sue's face was firm on the screen. "This is our message to the Galactic Council. The Terra Reclamation mandate is over. Earth is ours. Our solar system is ours. We will defend it with all the power we have. But we do not seek war. We do not want your territory. We want respect. We want to be left in peace. And we want our seat at the table to be one of equals, not of pets." The broadcast ended. The screen went dark. The chamber was silent again. Jin walked back into the room. All eyes turned to him. He walked to his small seat, but he did not sit down. He stood beside it. The The display is over, Jin said. The lesson is finished. Now we talk, but we will talk as equals, or we will not talk at all. An older delegate from a species called the Silix stood up. The Silix looked like tall, graceful plants. Their voice was soft like wind through leaves. Delegate Jin, we have misunderstood you. We see that now. We offer our apology. Jin nodded. Apology accepted. But apologies are not enough. The council must change. The way it treats new species must change. Gorvath looked up, his anger returning. You cannot tell the council how to act. You are one species. Jin looked directly at him. We are one species that just disabled your entire fleet without losing a single ship. I think we can. The truth of his words hung in the air. No one could argue. Military power was the only language the council truly understood, and humanity had just spoken it fluently. Jin looked around the room at all the strange and different faces. We will send a new proposal. It will outline a new way for humanity to work with the council. It will be fair. It will be just, but it will not be based on your old rules of strength. It will be based on our new reality. He finally sat down. The meeting continued. But everything was different now. When Jin spoke, everyone listened. They did not just hear his words. They understood the power behind them. The quiet was over. A new voice, calm, firm, and unshakable, had joined the galaxy, and for the first time the Galactic Council was afraid. The days that followed were strange and tense. The Galactic Council was like a school that had just discovered one of its quietest students was the strongest one of all. The delegates looked at Jin differently. They did not interrupt him. They did not laugh. When he spoke, they listened carefully. They watched his face for clues. Jin did not change. He was still calm and polite. But his words now had a new weight. He was no longer asking. He was telling. He presented the human proposal. It was called the Framework for Mutual Respect. It was a simple document. It said that no species could be forced from its homeworld. It said that trade had to be fair. It said that new species joining the council should be helped, not tricked or bullied. Many of the older, more powerful species did not like it. They had grown rich and strong using the old rules. The Vosk were the loudest opponents, but they were not as loud as before. The image of their broken fleet was fresh in everyone's mind, Gorvath argued. This will destroy the economy of the galaxy. We depend on resources from developing worlds. Jin looked at him. You depend on taking them cheaply. That is not an economy. That is theft. It ends now. The debate went on for days. Meanwhile, on Earth, life began to return to a new kind of normal. The secret was out. There was no need to hide anymore. People saw the ships in the sky. They saw the soldiers in their advanced armor. They felt a mix of pride and fear. They were proud of what their species had achieved in secret. But they were also afraid of what might come next. In the command center, Sue and her team were very busy. They were not just military planners anymore. They were diplomats and engineers. They had to help the world adjust to its new place in the galaxy. Day was the most excited. He could finally talk about his work. He gave public tours of the Guangzhou Forge. He showed off the drone swarms and the new engines. People watched in amazement. They were seeing the result of 100 years of their taxes and their silence. But Sue was worried. She called Jin on a secure line. The council is resisting, she said. They are looking for a way around our demands. They are afraid of us, but they do not respect us yet, Jin agreed. Fear is a good start, but it is not enough. We need to show them that we are not just strong. We are also useful. We need to give them a reason to want us as partners. The opportunity came sooner than anyone expected. A message arrived at the council. It was from a small furry species called the Tova. They lived on a planet at the edge of the galaxy. Their world was dying. A nearby star was becoming unstable. It was throwing out massive radiation storms. Their planet would be uninhabitable in less than a year. They had asked the council for help months ago, but no one had answered. They were not important enough. The Tova delegate, a small being named Fila, stood before the council. Her voice was a soft squeak. Please, she said. We have nowhere to go. Our ships are slow. We cannot escape. Can anyone help us? The large species looked away. Helping the Tova would be expensive. It would require a huge fleet of large ships. There was no profit in it. It was easier to let a small, weak species die. Gorvath spoke. The council regrets your situation. but our resources are stretched. We are dealing with new security matters. He glanced at Jin. We cannot help you. Fila's shoulders slumped. She turned to leave the chamber. It was clear she had expected this answer. Wait. The word was quiet, but it stopped her. It was Jin. He stood up. The people of Earth will help you, Jin said. The chamber went silent again. All the delegates stared at Jin. Gorvath laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Help them how? Your planet is on the other side of the galaxy. It would take your fast ships a decade to get there. They will be dead by then. Jin ignored him. He looked at the small Tova delegate. How many of your people are there? Fila looked shocked. 20 million, she whispered. Jin nodded. We can be there in 3 of your weeks. We will evacuate your entire population. We have a world in our system. It is empty, but we can make it livable for you. You can live there in peace for as long as you need. Fila was trembling. You would do this for us? What is the price? Jin smiled for the first time anyone could remember. It was a warm, genuine smile. The price is your friendship. Nothing more. In the command center, Sue was already moving. She had heard everything through Jin's implant. She started giving orders. Day, I need every long-range transport ship we have. I need the colony starter kits from the Mars warehouse. I need environmental teams. Now Day's eyes were wide. 3 weeks? Their star is going crazy. The radiation levels are extreme. Our shields might not hold for long. Then we will make new shields, Sue said, her voice firm. This is not just a rescue. This is a statement. We are showing them what our strength is for. The human fleet moved faster than anyone thought possible. Dozens of massive transport ships, escorted by warships like the Mujang, jumped across the galaxy. They used space-bending engines that the Council had believed were only theoretical. When they arrived at the Tova world, the situation was bad. The star was a raging inferno. Radiation storms were battering the planet. The Tova were huddled in underground caves waiting to die. Captain Hana coordinated the rescue from the bridge of the Mujang. The human ships descended through the violent storms. Their shields glowed bright orange as they absorbed the radiation. The Tova watched as giant ships landed on their world. They saw humans in protective armor who were calm and organized. There was no panic. The humans helped the small furry creatures onto the ships. They were gentle. They gave them food and water. They treated their sick. In less than a week, all 20 million Tova were safely on the human transports. The journey back was smooth. The human fleet returned to the solar system and settled the Tova on a prepared area of Mars. They built temporary homes for them. They gave them tools and seeds. They promised to help them until they could find a permanent home. The entire galaxy watched this happen. The Council delegates saw the images of humans carrying Tova children to safety. They saw the gratitude in the eyes of the Tova. They saw the incredible technology and power used not for conquest, but for compassion. When Jin returned to the council chamber, the silence was different. It was not a silence of fear. It was a silence of thought. The Silix delegate stood. Delegate Jin, she said, her voice full of something new, respect. The rescue of the Tova was the most noble act this council has witnessed in 1,000 years. You have shown us that strength and kindness can be the same thing. Gorvath said nothing. He could not. His entire philosophy of power had been shattered. Jin looked around the room. We did not help the Tova for your approval. We helped them because it was the right thing to do. This is who we are. This is what our strength is for. We suggest you remember that when you vote on our proposal. He sat down. The vote was held that afternoon. The framework for mutual respect passed by a large majority. For the first time, the Galactic Council had rules based on something other than raw power. They were based on the quiet, unshakable strength of a species that had learned to care for its own and was now willing to care for others. A year passed. The solar system was a different place. The Tova people were thriving in their new cities on Mars. The red planet was now dotted with green parks and low, graceful buildings. Human and Tova children played together in the domed plazas. The two species had become close friends, sharing knowledge and stories. On Earth, the secret was no longer a secret. The shipyards were now in plain view. Great silver ships came and went from orbits around the moon. The people of Earth felt a new sense of pride and security. They had looked into the eyes of the galaxy and had not blinked. In the Galactic Council, the change was slow but real. The framework for mutual respect was now the law. Jin was no longer the quiet delegate in the corner. He was now the head of a new committee that oversaw the fair treatment of new species. He worked long hours, but he was never alone. A team of the best human diplomats worked with him. One day a problem came to the committee. A species called the Kroll, who were miners and traders, were in a dispute with a new species, the gentle plant-like Lisha. The Kroll were drilling on a moon that the Lisha considered sacred. Under the old rules, the Kroll would have just taken what they wanted. Now, they had to ask for permission. The Kroll delegate was a large, rocky being named Boar. He stood before Jin's committee, his voice a low grind. This moon has rare minerals we need. The Lisha do not even use them. They just sing to the plants there. It is a waste. We offer them a fair price. The Lisha delegate, a willowy creature named Ilya, trembled. The songs are our history. The vibrations in the soil are our memory. If you drill, you will destroy our past. No price is fair for that. Boar made a sound of disgust. Songs, vibrations. This is not a real reason. This is foolishness. Jin listened to both sides. He then spoke not to Boar but to Ilya. Can you show us? Can you let us hear the songs? Ilya was surprised. No one had ever asked that before. She nodded. She opened a small device and a sound filled the room. It was a low, humming melody. It was not made by a voice but by the wind moving through special crystals in the Lisha's plants. It was beautiful and strange. Jin listened carefully. He then turned to Boar. You heard the song. That is their library. That is their art. Would you blow up a museum to get to the copper in its pipes? Boar shifted his heavy feet. It is not the same, isn't it? Jin asked. His voice was calm but firm. The framework says we must respect the cultural and spiritual needs of all species. The Lisha's need to protect their songs is as valid as your need for minerals. Boar was angry, but he was also practical. He had seen what happened to those who fought the humans. So what is the solution? My industry needs those minerals. Jin had already asked his team on Earth to look for one. Day, who was now in charge of new technologies, had found an answer. We have scanned the asteroid belt in your system, Jin said. Asteroid X-77 has the same minerals in a higher concentration. The Lisha have no connection to it. We will provide you with the scanning data and the technology to mine it safely. It will be more efficient for you. Boar was stunned. He had expected a fight. He had expected to be told no. He had not expected to be given a better solution. He looked at the data Jin sent to his screen. It was true. The asteroid was a richer source. He looked at Jin, then at Ilya. The anger left his rocky face. This is acceptable, he grumbled. Thank you. Ilya the Lisha bowed deeply to Jin. You have saved our memory. We will never forget this. News of this decision spread through the galaxy. The humans were not just strong. They were smart. They were fair. They solved problems instead of just crushing them. Respect for humanity grew. On Earth, Sue walked through a park in Seoul. The sun was warm. She watched children playing. She thought about the long, quiet years of preparation. It had been worth it. They had not created an empire of fear. They had created a place of safety and reason. She met with Jin when he returned from the council. He looked tired but happy. The Boar situation was handled well, Sue said. Dee's team did good work, Jin nodded. It is what we promised. We are not their masters. We are their partners. Sometimes that means being the referee. They looked up at the sky. A human starship, a new model for peaceful exploration, was a tiny silver dot moving gracefully towards the stars. The quiet is truly over, Jin said. Sue smiled. Yes, but the noise we make now is a good one. It is the sound of building, not breaking. In the Galactic Council, the old ways were fading. Species began to bring their disputes to Jin's committee, instead of threatening each other. The human idea that strength could be used for protection and wisdom, not just for taking, was slowly taking root. The story of Earth was no longer a story about a species that had tricked the galaxy. It was a story about a species that had grown up alone, learned from its own terrible mistakes and decided to be better. They had chosen to use their power to draw a circle that included everyone, not just themselves, and the galaxy, for the first time in a long time, began to feel a little safer, a little more just and a little more hopeful, all because one planet had stayed quiet long enough to learn how to speak with a voice that could not be ignored.